Once my niece arrived home, everything changed. My devoted German shepherds, Max and Ruby, had always been watchful, but now they were behaving differently. Emma's aunt saw Max and Luna were behaving as though the child was more than simply a visitor. They treated her like she were their own, not only kept her safe. All of this then made sense. Luna has given birth to a litter of puppies a year ago, but one of them disappeared. The dogs were quite depressed over their loss, particularly Luna, who had been whiny and restless for days of seeking. Now Emma was in the house. It was as though the missing puzzle piece had been discovered. The small girl smelt like their puppy, hence the dogs believed she to be their missing puppy. In their hearts, they knew the small child they had been missing all along. However, they still exhibited some strange behavior. Their eyes and ears were always on the windows and doors. They wouldn't leave her side. I first paid little attention to it, as I assumed they were merely exercising caution. But I felt uncomfortable with their snarling at what looked like nothing. I couldn't get rid of the idea that something wasn't right, even if I attempted to concentrate on something else. I then met my niece. She sat on the floor with her small fingers moving across the threads of the rug, quite silent still. Every now and then her eyes would fly to the windows, and she would turn away. Sweetly I inquired, "Are you okay, honey?" Still, she remained silent. Her usual vibrant attitude had gone. Clearly, something was not right. The dogs tightened up and stayed on high alert, moving back and forth between my sister and the front entrance as though they were waiting for something or someone. My unease developed. That evening, as I was drinking my tea in the living room, there was an abrupt, furious barking. Their bodies stiffened. Max and Ruby went toward the front entrance and let out loud, deep growls. My heart raced as I got to my feet. I had only ever seen them behave this way once. I inhaled deeply, then started for the door. My hands were shaking as I gradually opened the handle. Looking outdoors, what I saw made my blood run cold. When I woke up the following morning, I still vividly remembered the terrifying night before. Max and Ruby stayed shockingly alert. Even the smallest sound made their ears tingle. Furthermore, my niece seemed far away, even more than she had in past years. Just as the first light of the day peeked through the blinds, someone knocked on the door. Mrs. Kramer, our neighbor, was on the porch when I opened it. "Good morning," I greeted her, trying to keep my voice steady. Her expression, however, revealed her great disturbance. She inquired straight away, "Is everything okay with your niece?" I started to flush. "Why do you ask?" She considered it for a moment, then groaned, "Late at night, too. I have seen some strange children hanging about your yard lately." I felt a wave of discomfort wash over me. What kind of children were they? Why were they at such proximity to my house? Could they be the reason Max and Ruby are behaving so peculiarly? Mrs. Kramer replied, worriedly looking at me. "I thought you should know." I thanked her and closed the door. My mind was already racing. I looked back, and Max and Ruby were still standing close to the door. Their motions were stiff. They had the knowledge that something was off. I have to work out what. To get over my discomfort, I looked to my niece and feigned a grin. "How about some ice cream?" She nodded after some contemplation. I had seen her grow excited for the first time in days. As we strolled to the ice cream shop, I focused especially on what was happening all around us. My cousin appeared to settle down, but her eyes remained staring around, as though she were searching for something or someone. Then, at the park, I noticed them. For a while, a group of older children leaned their bikes against the fence and hung around the swings. Unlike the other youngsters, they were not giggling or playing. They were watching her. My niece tightened her entire body and stopped midway during a step. Following her eyes, I saw the children staring straight at her and grinning at each other. My heart started to quiver. I struggled to remain seated, but my hands were balled in fists. On the other hand, Max and Ruby were hardly as patient. Their bodies stiffened and their ears went flat. Their low and frightening barks were menacing. Before racing behind the swing set, my cousin paused. She reached for the metal chains with her small hands as though they might shield her. Though their mocking, teasing laughter could be heard everywhere, the children did not go any closer. That was enough. As soon as I got up and headed approaching my niece, the kid began to pay me some attention. They said nothing, but the smirks vanished. "Come on, sweetheart," I gently said. "Let's go home." She nodded quickly, and a look of relief swept over her. Never taking their eyes off of the children, Max and Ruby stayed next to them as we left. When we got home, I knew I could not ignore it any more. I sat at the kitchen table, my niece beside me, her small fingers tracing the rim of her glass. "Sweetie," I asked coolly, "who were those kids at the park?" She looked down at her lap, and our discussion stopped for a long moment. Whispering, she said, "They say mean things all the time." My pulse faltered. Bullies. I tried not to lose temper. "You know that you're safe here, right?" I asked her. "Max and Ruby won't let anything happen to you." The doorbell rang as she started to slightly smile. Max and Ruby jumped to their feet immediately, their ears tuned, their muscles stiffened. Half hoping to see someone I knew, I made slow approach to the door. Still, what the dogs did made my tummy turn over. My fingers rested on the doorknob, and I gently opened it. It was good that it was merely a delivery man. Still, the tension in the house persisted, even as the door closed. It had to become better. That evening, I gave my sister a call. We had to develop a strategy. I wanted my niece to feel safe as much as to keep her safe. We thus planned a little gathering. If the neighborhood children came over, we could know how things would be better. We may be of assistance. At first, my niece was unsure, but she consented finally. She knew Max and Ruby would be with her. When the kids arrived, I watched closely over them. Always at my niece's side, Max and Ruby were like a quiet wall. I saw that then as well, the same gathering of park children. Their eyes swung back and forth as they glanced at one another, then at my niece. They spoke softly among one another. They then laughed. I clenched my jaw. Max and Ruby let out low grumbles. It was time to end this. Our hearts heavy with uncertainty and concern, we sat in the living room looking at one another worriedly. Though we both felt something had to be done, we had to intervene in some capacity. We never spoke. Though we felt something had to be done right away, we tried our best to be strong for the other children in the room. Then, in a moment that froze my heart, my niece suddenly vanished from my view. I scanned the room, first hoping she had simply slipped into another conversation or wandered into another corner of the house. But after several tense seconds, it became clear that she was nowhere to be seen. Alarming thoughts rushed into my mind like a tidal wave. Had something happened to her? Had those mean-spirited kids done something? I hurried out into the backyard after they left. At last I came upon her in the chilly, wide space. Sitting by herself on the worn-out wooden steps, my niece was gripping her knees as though she were trying to guard herself from something she couldn't see. Though it was soon muted by concern about what might have caused her desire to be alone in the cold, I had an unexpected, intense feeling of relief. Max and Ruby, the dogs, were also present. They strolled gently around her, never looking away from her little frame. Their silence always made me think of how they kept me safe, a comforting but sad barrier against the cruel reality. Her lips were red from crying, and her eyes were full of unquenchable anguish. My heart hurt so terribly that I muttered, "You're safe now, sweetheart. I'm here." I dropped down on my knees next to her. What had made her so unhappy piqued my genuine curiosity. I noticed some children standing close before I could ask further. Their airy, cool, calculated looks cut right through. Their unusual and quick appearance made me very attentive. Driven to bring her back inside and beyond those nasty eyes, I got up. As I gently guided her to the door, I promised her in my brain that I would investigate what was happening. I couldn't get rid of the idea that something rather horrible was happening. Even we returned inside safely. The house was obviously stressed. The usually joyful atmosphere had been replaced with an unstated concern. Not too long afterward, someone broke the silence by knocking on the door. We came together in our living room and candidly discussed the issue. The parents of the older children seemed reluctant to acknowledge the issue, their expressions guarded and their voices tentative. I shared with them what I had observed: Max and Ruby's continual vigilance whenever those children were around, my niece's terrified glances and subdued responses. The chat was initially tense, but as we spoke our issues and experiences, the parents began to see how many others were suffering from the behavior of their children. Gradually, as I laid out the details and shared my own heartfelt concerns, the atmosphere shifted. Everyone in the room agreed that we should keep our children secure, since one parent claimed to have witnessed their youngster behaving oddly. At last, my niece said softly and with shaky voice. She had been seated silently on the periphery of the gathering. Tears were in her eyes. "They call me names," she said him. "They say I'm weak." That tiny comment turned everything around. Silence fell upon everyone in the room as her words sank in weight. Her hesitant revelation revealed the suffering underneath it, the agony of repeatedly being bullied. The conversation shifted from accusations to understanding. We discussed ways to foster empathy, to encourage the kids to recognize the impact of their words. We talked about creating positive interactions, a community event where everyone could come together and rebuild trust. It was an uncomfortable conversation, but it was necessary. By the end of the meeting, there was a sense of cautious optimism. We decided to organize a little community event at the end of the conference in hopes that open communication would enable individuals to heal over time and encourage them to understand one another. That evening, as I put my niece to bed, I sensed something odd. She was fatigued, although her eyes seemed to be somewhat satisfied. They hoped that things would perhaps improve, just maybe. Laying next her were Max and Ruby. Their gentle touch constantly told her she was loved and protected. I sat with her and for some time murmured in her ear. Her eyes closed slowly, and I knew our labor was starting to pay off. "You're safe here, darling. We're all here for you." Our community started to shift over the next few weeks. Our house changed with time from being tense to pleasant and full of hope. Her smile returned when my cousin was playing with her friends in our backyard gatherings, and the constant bullying ended gradually. Always at her side, Max and Ruby appeared to relax and engage more readily. They moved from vigilant to gentle protectors. I observed the children laughing together at one of these gatherings, and I noted that the larger children were now smiling at one another rather than mocking one another. We grew closer since we cooperated to create a safe environment. The support of the community gave our family strength. We embraced every little victory, every nice word, every soft smile, every sound of laughter filling our house once more. When the children went to bed and the house was quiet, I would sit by the window and observe them play. The progress we had had made me very grateful. My niece was really terrified when she was tiny. She was now tentatively hopeful about her day. Her incredible fortitude gave me even more hope that, working together, we could overcome anything. Max and Ruby, our typically alert guards, seemed to let up some slack. Their balance improved, and in the afternoons they returned their playful energy, running after a ball or just lounging in the sun. Though they never left her side, they were a subtle reminder of the love and protection all around her. One particularly memorable day, my niece, buoyed by newfound confidence, invited a few friends over for a playdate in our backyard. I watched from the window as she ran and laughed, her joy infectious. Max and Ruby trotted alongside her, occasionally pausing to nudge her gently or to chase a stray leaf dancing in the breeze. Our neighbor, Mrs. Kramer, who was always there for us, stopped by too with a kind grin and a pledge to assist in organizing more local activities. Her gentle remarks, "I've seen a big change in the kids," kept running through my head and offered me hope for a better future. That evening, as our family gathered around the dinner table, a new ritual we had adopted to appreciate every little blessing, I could feel a tangible sense of unity and healing. Each of us shared what had made our day special, and my niece's quiet voice, once laden with sorrow, now carried a tone of cautious optimism. I marveled at how our collective efforts were slowly rebuilding trust. The protective instincts of Max and Ruby, once driven by fear, had transformed into gentle guardianship. Their unwavering loyalty had provided a pillar of strength for my niece, ensuring she knew she was never alone. Our community grew stronger, and the bonds we developed helped one another heal and made that place safe for everyone. The trip was not simple, but the improvements were obvious. Open communication and teamwork, I discovered, may transform a terrified community into one in which people respect and know one another. Every day I savored the small pleasures that brought me joy. The real laughing of my niece, the protective warmth of Max and Ruby, and the pleasant smiles of our neighbors. These were indicators that hope had blossomed even if we were still having challenges. Every night as I fell asleep, I knew we would keep working on our newly discovered unity and ensure our house remained a loving and safe environment for everyone. Every day as we progressed, growing stronger, more compassionate, and prepared for whatever the future contained.